And what we learn about in this third phase is that this is our peak fertility and confidence phase. So you are naturally going to be more confident days 15 through 17 of your cycle. That's why I always tell you, if you can put your date in for when you are actually going to approach your boss, and if you can align it with the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, and part of these days, the 15 through 17 day of your cycle, you are automatically going to have increased confidence, which is going to increase your chances of getting a promotion. Now, you don't have to have all of those things in line. People still get promotions and raises year after year with My Promotion Plan system, but it never hurts. When you have extra confidence, others are going to have confidence in you as well. And the studies actually showed during this phase, you actually have increased verbal and social skills due to your hormonal changes. And so during this time, you want to schedule those important meetings and presentations, just like the career advancement meeting you want to have with your boss, telling them why you are the perfect candidate for that next role and how you deserve an increase in your compensation. And that's why this is also the perfect time to engage in negotiations and decision making. So these are 3 of your power days. And so you just want to use these days wisely throughout the month to see what important meetings can you plan, presentations, what can you do on these days, because your hormones are going to be set in such a way that you are going to be prepped for success.
Hey friends, it's Mary, and this is the Mary Guirovich Show, a podcast that champions today's working women to gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to up-level your career while strengthening your faith and living your dream life, all in record time. We'll cover topics like career advancement, leadership, personal development, faith, and health and wellness, so you can intentionally create a career and life full of more abundance, joy, and love. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome on into this episode of the Mary Guirovich Show. I am so excited that you're joining me here today. I never take it for granted that you would tune in and listen to the podcast. And today I want to talk to you about our menstrual cycles and how they really affect our careers. Now, I have been digging more and more into menstrual cycles ever since I have been on the fasting, lifestyle, I'll call it. I don't want to call it a diet. It's more of a lifestyle. And so I've studied a lot about fasting and I've really been digging into it. And what I learned through this process is that fasting is different for men and for women. And this has to do with our cycles, with our hormones, and with the way our body expects things to react. But as I was digging into the hormones and the cycles, I really started to discover so much more. And what I discovered is how our cycle actually affects our thoughts and our energy, our communication styles, and so many things. And as a woman, whether you're a mom or not a mom, if you're listening to this, you're probably a career woman, but we can go through these ebbs and flows, these ups and downs, these valleys and these mountains. And sometimes we can feel like, why is it that last week I was so good? I was so on track with this thing, but this week I'm feeling differently about it. Or, hey, 2 weeks ago, this was great. And now it just feels so off track. Well, the truth is that many of us have never been trained about our cycles and how our cycles actually affect our bodies, our thoughts, our productivity, all of these things. And what happens is we start to put ourselves down. I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of negative self-talk in my life, and I've done a lot of work to overcome a lot of it, but it still comes up. And there will be days where it's like, why can't I get myself going? Why can't I do this thing? I know I need to do this thing, but why can't I do it? And I start to have all of these questions. And I want to share this with you because I think that it's so empowering when we can understand what is happening in our bodies, because the truth is that our hormones are different. Our hormone levels are changing. Okay. So the men in our lives, their hormones are relatively the same all the time. They're not really changing like ours do. And so of course we're going to have ups and downs. There'll be times where, our joints are more flexible. There's times where we have higher energy, lower energy. We're more prone to acne, mood swings, all of these things. And there's times where we crave carbs. And there's times where we're like, man, we're just so exhausted. We just need to rest. And then there's other times where we're like, wow, we have all this energy. We feel like we can take on the world, and it all has to do with our cycles. And so when we understand our cycle, we can practice a lot of self-compassion and care. And we can also adjust our schedules so we can be planning things at the time that is going to be most opportune to align with what our hormones are already equipping us to do. So let's go ahead and dive into this episode. If you find value in it, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with a friend. That would be so meaningful. Okay, so we all understand what the menstrual cycle is, right? It's our 28-day cycle. Some of you have 30-day cycles. Some of you are a little bit longer, regular, not regular. But today what we're going to do is just talk about how each phase really affects your energy levels, your mood, and your cognitive abilities differently. And so the first cycle that we have is our menstrual phase, and that is days 1 through 5. And during this time, this is the shedding of the uterine lining, and this time is associated with lower energy levels and lower mood states. And so the studies show, that this is when we have our hormonal changes that are linked to fatigue and irritability. So during this phase, what we want to do is we actually want to schedule self-care and rest. So this isn't the time for you to start a new challenge. This isn't the time for you to, head up a new project. And I know we can't always align everything at work with our cycle. It doesn't work like that. But if you can have some control, and if you do have some control, thinking about these things and giving yourself this rest during the best time for you will be most opportunistic for you. Okay. And the other thing we want to do is we want to avoid high pressure tasks and presentations if possible during this time, because we're just fatigued, we're tired, and we want to rest. And that's what our body needs, because our bodies, God has created us. Yes, He's created us to work, but He's also created us to reproduce. And that's why our body is going through this phase. And the truth is, whether it's with diet, whether it's with stress, whatever it is in life, our body is preserving the human race. And in order to do that, it needs to protect us. And so what it is doing is saying, okay, here's what I need to hang on to. Here is what I need to be able to stay in a state of reproduction. And so your body is going to take everything it needs to preserve that. But what will happen is other areas, other parts of your life can suffer. And that's why if we're not feeding ourselves, if our nutrition isn't right based off of our cycles, we can actually gain weight when we restrict calories. We can actually gain weight even if we're doing things like the keto diet or intermittent fasting, because our body sees that as a state of stress. That's not actually a good thing whenever we're in certain phases. And so phase number 1, menstrual phase, you just want to schedule that self-care and rest during that time and avoid those high pressure items. Okay, the second phase, the follicular phase, days 6 through 14. Now, this is when your estrogen levels are going to increase, enhancing your mood and energy. And this is wonderful, right? So during this time, the studies show that we get improved cognitive abilities and memory during this phase. So during this phase, you actually want to tackle challenging tasks and do your brainstorming sessions. This is a great time to brainstorm. Your cognitive abilities are going to be improved. This is also a great time. Your communication is up, your memory is up. So networking and collaborating with colleagues during this time is going to be something that you can do optimally. All right, then we work into our third phase, which is the ovulatory phase, which is days 15 through 17. And during this time, and I talk about this, if you have already downloaded the Boost Your Confidence and Get the Promotion Guide, the cheat sheet that we have, then you've already learned about this next tip. If you haven't gotten the guide, you can go ahead and check in the show notes, click on the link, and I will send you the full guide. But in the guide, we talk about boosting your confidence. And what we learn about in this third phase is that this is our peak fertility and confidence phase. So you are naturally going to be more confident days 15 through 17 of your cycle. That's why I always tell you, if you can put your date in for when you are actually going to approach your boss, and if you can align it with the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, and part of these days, the 15 through 17 day of your cycle, you are automatically going to have increased confidence, which is going to increase your chances of getting a promotion. Now, you don't have to have all of those things in line. People still get promotions and raises year after year with the My Promotion Plan system, but it never hurts. When you have extra confidence, others are going to have confidence in you as well. And the studies actually show during this phase, you actually have increased verbal and social skills due to your hormonal changes. And so during this time, you want to schedule those important meetings and presentations, just like the career advancement meeting you want to have with your boss, telling them why you are the perfect candidate for that next role and how you deserve an increase in your compensation. And that's why this is also the perfect time to engage in negotiations and decision making. So these are 3 of your power days. And so you just want to use these days wisely throughout the month to see what important meetings can you plan, presentations, what can you do on these days, because your hormones are going to be set in such a way that you are going to be prepped for success just because of who you are. And so that's pretty awesome. Okay. Now, the fourth phase, the luteal phase, days 18 through 28. So during this stage, this is when your progesterone is actually going to rise, and then it's going to drop, and this is going to lead to your premenstrual symptoms. Now, during this time, the studies show that we have an increased attention to detail and analytical skills during this time. So things we would want to focus on during this time is detail-oriented tasks and wrapping up projects. We could also prepare for the upcoming cycle, right? We know that we're going to be needing to get into self-care. So how could we already be setting ourselves up, whether it's with a massage, a time for a gentle walk, a book that we want to maybe be reading, a meditation, but just thinking about, hey, what are we going to do for self-care in this next phase? But it really is about getting things wrapped up so that way we're ready to move into that next phase. And the key is really to track your cycle. I used to not track my cycle. It didn't really matter. I didn't need to track it for any reason. And I hadn't been tracking it until I wanted to start working based off of my cycle and eating and exercising based off of my cycle. Now, if you want to learn more about like exercising and fasting, I will link a video below. I absolutely love Dr. Mindy Pelz, and she has a wonderful book called Fast Like a Girl. She has an amazing YouTube channel with tons and tons of free videos. There's like over 900 free videos on there. So you can find everything. But I will attach a video that talks I'm sure I can find one about the menstrual cycle and fasting. So if you're like, hey, yeah, I would like to be losing weight, right? Or I would like to be getting healthier. I've tried fasting, but maybe it hasn't worked for me. Well, it could be because you're not timing it with your cycle. And so I will track that below. Now you may be saying, well, Mary, I don't get a cycle anymore, right? And if that is the case, then if you're looking for more information, Dr. Mindy is still a go-to person. She talks about so many things when it comes to our cycles. So I definitely recommend that you go ahead and you check her out. But what you want to do now is just make sure you are tracking your cycle. Take some time. I'll put lots of detailed notes in the show notes, but go ahead and download these and just think about, how can you strategically plan your schedule? When somebody says, hey, I need to have a meeting about this, or you go to plan your next presentation, how can you plan it in such a way that you can actually harness your cycle? Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I never take it for granted that we get time together. I would love hearing about your success stories in your career, the confidence that you've built. So continue to leave the reviews and reach out to me, connect on social media so we can continue to grow together. Until we meet again on the next episode of the Mary Guirovich Show, remember, you're only one plan away from your next promotion. And God, He's not done with you.
Hey friend, thank you for listening today. Be sure to join us next week for another great episode. If you receive value from today's show, I'd appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star review to help others learn about the show. And if you're ready to fast track your career and increase your income, impact, and joy, then head on over to maryguirovich.com and check out the masterclass that teaches you how you can advance too. I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. This and so much more can be found in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you soon.